Thank you very much for coming through the rain. Usually we have a much better view. The clouds are dissipating, so you can see the sun. In the next, we're not going to keep you for long. We've each got about a 45-minute talk, right? Nico, yours is about an hour and a half. Yeah, mine's about 45 minutes. But the point of this event was, I was speaking to Nico about what I think is one of the problems in the country, which is small businesses are the growth engine of any economy. Everyone knows that. We've got Dludlu, who's a significant journalist in his own right, former editor of the Sowetan. I suppose I should introduce everybody first. And now the CEO of the Small Business Institute. Segametsi and Laetitia are brilliant young small business owners. They're part of an amazing tribe called the Igwelia. Mike and Johan are the two people behind it. They've been doing some really brilliant incubator work with amazing companies like theirs, and I'll let them tell their story. And Nico Thomas, who is the big kahuna at Nedbank. I think that's your official title, big kahuna, or managing executive.
Big green kahuna.
Yeah. Managing executive of just about everything. Retail and business banking is actually the correct title, but he covers so much of what the bank does. So what I did is I said to him, the problem is small businesses get given advice by big businesses. I love the fact that Brian Joffe spends so much of his time giving back to the community, but the last business he ran had 30,000 people in it. Most small businesses are 5 or 10. My long-suffering business partner, Sally Hudson, and I run a small business. We actually run 2. We launched one during COVID. And part of what I think is missing in what small businesses do is that some of the basics. Lots of people know a little bit about tech, but if you give people tech tools, their businesses flourish. And that's what I wanted this day to be about. And we're just going to talk about how digital transformation, which is the big word to describe, using Gmail on your phone and a bunch of other things, can transform businesses. And it's the kind of stuff that we need to do throughout the country just to get us going better. And I'm going to bring up some slides. I just wanted to set the scene to kind of show you how things had changed. Let's see if this works. We set this up moments ago. And basically what I want to demonstrate is how the world has gone from desktop computers to mobile devices like smartphones. And about 10 years ago, I wrote a piece for CNN saying, Africa is mobile only. The rest of the world's mobile first. We are mobile only. And because that's what a computer used to look like, right? You can see the media of the day is an LP, with records. And that's what the computer of today looks like. I actually touched Steve Jobs' iPad. This hand. That's what the internet used to look like, and that's what the internet looks like now. And you can see it's all going to mobile. That's what telephony used to look like. Actually, last Thursday, I was in Centurion doing a talk for Telkom, and I took that at Telkom Towers. Don't laugh, please. That's the upgraded call system. And that's what telephony looks like now. And I took this picture in New York a couple of years ago. This woman was walking down the street. She could have been using any one of those calling services. And it was only later that I looked at the book in her hand that says Where Medieval Meets Modern, which is about the best description of New York I've ever seen. In fact, we're all on the phone all the time. At least now, thanks to the Zondo Commission, we know who he was talking to. The youth of today don't know the relationship between these devices, right? Hands up. Who remembers, That's what a camera used to look like, and that's what that's what photography looks like now. It's all on our mobile phones. Our mobile phones have taken over from everything. Please come in. Don't feel bad about being late. I won't point out to everyone how late you are. Welcome, thank you. In fact, we no longer take pictures of where we are, but who we're with. And I am totally in agreement with Michelle Obama. I don't think David Cameron was that impressive. And that was before Brexit. Just to give you an illustration, the previous Pope, when he was inaugurated, there was only one person with the camera. And at the following inauguration, just 8 years later, look how many everyone has a device. I know the word's not inauguration. There's another big word, but I'm Jewish, and all you Christians look the same to us. And that is what the original Apple computer looked like, handmade by Steve Jobs. We have come so far from that. That's what a portable computer used to look like. I think the guy on the right could teach Eskom something about load shedding, load balancing. And the modern computer is a smartphone. And if you cover the logos on the back of those phones, you probably can't tell which device is which, because the power of this computer is phenomenal. As we're going to demonstrate, you can run an entire business. Who, by the way, has these kinds of office filing cabinets? Anyone still have them in their offices? Yeah, you do? The guy with the red hat. Very, very Jacques Cousteau. We have one in the staff office. We use it to keep the spare plates and the coffee, because everything is in the cloud. We live in a world where the computer is actually in the cloud, and our mobile devices are what we use to access any kinds of services. It's truly phenomenal. You don't need a monstrous computer in your hand. You just need a computer that can connect to the cloud and get everything you could possibly think of. Billing, transactions, payments, a super app like Avo, even something called Facebook. Anyone heard of it? Just lost 70% of its share price. So running a small business is a bit like this guy, hey? Segametsi, yeah. Laetitia, you know the feeling. You're like the only person there. Remember, depression? Have you tried jogging? Yes. Got to love the fact that the memes are so funny and sophisticated. So that's what a friend of mine gave me this advice. I used to work for a company that I hated and I wanted to leave. And now that the dust has settled, I can tell you that he used to run a little messaging service called Mixit. Alan Not Craig Jr. had a huge fight with the shareholders about a year later and left. So I sent this back to him and said, that's what success looks like. So finally, the nature of technology and the access to the internet has changed Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know. No one needs shelter anymore when they have free Wi-Fi. So that's the world we live in. It's a mobile world. It's cloud-based. Everybody has access to all of this technology. It's a true enabler. And with that in mind, I'm going to hand over to Ciko, who's going to talk just a little bit about Nedbank's perspective of it. I'm pleased to see you doing it with an iPad.
Thanks,
Thank
Toby.
you.
Morning, guys. Sorry, I'm the reason why everyone started late. I was the one who was late. My name is Ciko Thomas. I look after retail and business banking at Nedbank, and I noticed I've got a couple of colleagues here. And importantly, I've got, so Toby and
Yes.
Sally, thanks for hosting us. Chipo Mushwana is here. She's our head of emerging payments. She does a lot of the stuff in the digital payments world that we do in the bank.
Very good subject for a podcast, if anyone ever wants her.
She's fantastic. She really is. I don't want to talk about Nedbank too much. I just kind of want to give a perspective of the stuff that we do in the SME space. What's it informed by first? And just to give you guys a bit of color around what it is that we do and why we do it. And ultimately we do it because it makes good business sense, right? One of the things that we recognize in the world, in our world, is just the centrality of SME banking as a catalyst of business activity and as a pivot point for generating economic activity. We all know the stats, how central it is to the economy, source of employment, makes sense in the context of our society, given our employment challenges and the consequences of those employment challenges, or rather specifically unemployment challenges and crime and all the things that happen in our country. We know all of this stuff. So as a bank, we kind of started at the beginning and said, if we could go to the first slide, what's our purpose? We're a bank, so we kind of know one or two things about money, right? You know, we really do. We're like really, really good at understanding money. And we kind of said, at the heart of our purpose is, how do we take this understanding of money and understanding the role that money plays in transforming societies? How do we do that to work with clients, businesses, shareholders, other groups of stakeholder societies and businesses in particular to create better societies. How do we do that? How do we become the pivot point around taking an understanding of something that is as central to human existence as money is and use that to better the lives of humanity, and in this context, businesses. So how we think about businesses is central to our very, very purpose as a business. So if we can go to our next slide. And as a consequence of this, I mean, we service right across the spectrum of businesses. We service from the tiniest of businesses right up to big, well-established businesses in our world. And I just want to pull the slides from my side so I know that we're talking to the same thing. There we go. So we support the full spectrum of businesses in South Africa, micro, informal traders. And we've really stepped up the pace with which we think about informal traders. Banks haven't been always responsive to what happens in the informal trade, right? And I think banks are starting to wake up to it, Toby, and in particular us. I mean, for me, it was intuitive. I've been in my role for 6 years, and somewhere in my very distant working life, I used to work for a beer company. I used to be a beer sales rep. In fact, even before that, I used to sell blocks of cooking fat, wholesome, in rural parts of the country. So there isn't a part of rural South Africa that you can point at that I don't know, because I used to sell cooking fat. And cooking fat and beer in South Africa moved through the informal trade, largely. You know, anyone knows wholesome, you know that it sells in the informal trade. And so a big part of my early livelihood came out of the informal market. So I understood it intuitively. So this is something that I came, and one of the things that I challenged ourselves as a team to think about is how do we think about being alive to the possibility of unlocking opportunities for ourselves as a bank and making money, but make money in a way that adds value to our partners in the informal trade largely. So, we cut across the bank and we cut across the spectrum with proper products and services, with proper lending solutions, and we keep on evolving the way we think about lending, how we think about the channels and how we service them, and all of those things. This is how we service the market. If we go to the next slide, and where does digital come into this? One of the things that we recognize is if you are going to be a bank that plays in this space, you have to bring a deep element of humanity to how you service the market. And if you think about digital and you decouple it from humanity, you're going to miss the trick. So at any point, how we think about digital or digitizing of our offerings and how we interact with our customers, it is always with the duality of how do we do stuff digitally, but with a strong touch of humanity in what we do. So we talk about this idea of digital when you want it, human when you need it. So we're available in both instances. So if you walk into a Nedbank branch today, and please, I invite you to walk into a Nedbank branch, we've zhuzhed them up even further. We probably, and again, I said I'm not selling today, but I can present facts. We probably have the most attractive branch environment in which to do business today. It's slick, it's effortless, it's friendly, and it's very digital in how you do things. So the old idea of a teller sitting behind the counter collecting money is gone. We have people that are standing with these devices helping you to do stuff digitally to save you time and get you out of there. And if you need to be in there, we'll be nice to you. We'll have nice coffees, Wi-Fi's, and we have a really great physical interaction space around our branches in the way that we do things, which talks back to the idea of marrying both digital and humanity. Next slide. So our capabilities are built around this trifecta of, firstly, how do you make it easy for you to do business? How do you onboard you? So gone are the days when you think about opening a bank account, for instance, which is the start of the relationship. You have to walk into a branch. It's in the history. I'll talk to that quickly. We think about how we make payment easy. And again, when people think about payment solutions, in my past life, if you have to deal with a tavern owner to sell them beer, their biggest pain point was not the fact that SAB was going to deliver their castles, the crates of castle late. It was around the fact that in their world, they have to deal with cash. I live in the middle of Mtubatuba in rural KZN. There are customers who come to my distributor to buy crates of beer and they leave bags of cash. Okay, and it's not safe to carry cash. How do we as a bank help solve for those problems and remove cash from the ecosystem and make it easy for customers to work with their client bases and make it easy to do cash using digital and innovative payment solutions? And then how do we think beyond banking? And I'll talk to that. I'll talk to Evo a little bit and how we think about beyond banking to make it easy for us to open up new frontiers to make money, but also go with our SME partners to help them make money as well. So onboarding, for instance, next slide. You can open a bank account fully digitally now. You don't have to believe me. You can go to our website or our app and go and open, as a business owner, up to 3 directors, a quick startup bundle, business banking, and you can get going with your business. Next slide, please. Even on the lending side, our lending solutions are easily available online. You can look and say, I need an overdraft, I need a piece of working capital, I need to finance a car or a van for my business, or I need, if I'm a doctor, I need to finance equipment. All of it you can do digitally. Next slide, please. And even things like running servicing, ordering Forex for your business, et cetera, all of that stuff you can pretty much do now on your app, on your banking app. So you can do it from your phone. And if you don't believe me, there's a QR code. You can take a picture and go online, and you can see where those things sit. And it's really easy. You know, we don't have digital applications that are intended to be cute and sexy and all of that. They focus on the core of what they want or need to do and serve customers with really ease of interaction. So that's what you find with how we think about bundling. And some of the stuff that we've done, and a lot of the stuff has been born out of the work that Chipo has led in her world. If we go to the next slide. Things like scan to pay, bill payments, all of these things done digitally. Digital payments via our money app, Apple Pay capability for merchants, money messaging. You can send a number to WhatsApp and request a payment, and you can do that entire string of banking through WhatsApp, what we call WhatsApp banking. All of that is available on our spectrum. And for small businesses, things like paying using your phone. So you don't need a POS device, the thing that people call speed points that have been popularized, that cost an arm and a leg. You don't need that stuff if you own a business. You can do payments using your digital phone, your smartphone. So tap on phone is something that we're first in the country to launch. We're proud of that. We've seen other banks launching them subsequently. I've got this slick thing here. I can use it.
Yes, it's a remote control.
I missed that. Okay, it's not working for me right now. Next slide, please. Next slide. So we've got things like MasterPass. For guys who want to do business online, we've got MasterPass. Next slide, please. I spoke about WhatsApp banking. Text hi to 087. You can try this and request a payment. It's all there. It's capability that's built on the phone. Next slide. I spoke about bill accepting card payments, delivering to their smartphones. And then in this whole spectrum, last slide, around kind of beyond banking, the Evo marketplace. We've created Evo really as a marketplace where we can get customers to sell textiles on our platforms, on the Nedbank platform. So we open up a network, like any platform business, we open a network of customers to you fully digitally, where your customers can go through our channel and our delivery capability. You can buy the products that you want, you can have it delivered to you, we can negotiate prices at deep discounts, better than what you can buy from on your own from your suppliers, and you can arrange for funding if you need to fund that equipment as working capital. We have become, in a very short space of time, just to share a tidbit with you guys, one of the biggest sellers of SMEG kettles in the country. If you go to Evo now, there are fewer places that are better from an experience and a value point of view to buy Apple products. So if you want to buy any Apple product, save yourself time. Don't go to an Apple shop, go on Evo online and buy it there. It's great value, it's great convenience. You can finance them if you want to buy a laptop for 28 grand, you can finance it. It can be delivered to you, and we've done the negotiating on the price side for you as well. So all of that stuff is done fully digital. So that's the Evo marketplace. But it's not only for the likes of Apple. That's the possibilities for Evo are not just for big companies like Apple or SMEG, et cetera, et cetera. It's really for the guys who've got small businesses who sell flowers, who sell hair products, who sell whatever of a broad spectrum of products that need to have an online presence. You don't need to create that. You just come to us on Evo, we onboard you as a merchant, and you can get going and sell your products. So in many ways, this is the world that we're thinking about. And I mean, even in the future, the last slide, how we think about, kind of liberating what we call the main market or the township market, creating e-commerce and democratizing that, alternative lending, etc. All of these things are things that we're actively and proactively thinking about around how do we do this as we deliver value to customers. So that's the background to how we think about digital specifically in the context of SMEs and businesses in our world, Toby. So I thought I'd do that as a insight. Again, as I said, important, not so much to talk about what Nedbank does. I mean, we do what we do, but really to conscientize owners of business around the possibilities that digital brings for them as they think about their businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Ciko. And I'm very interested in super apps and where those are going to go, but that's a conversation for another time. Before we start with the rest of the panelists, we have a lovely video from Nedbank that we're going to show quickly. From Samsung, hey?
This place from up there, or from a bank that's right here.
Nice video. I'd have a chair like that. Most other people have drug habits. I have a chair habit. All of this furniture is my own. I've never found a way to turn my love of furniture and good design into a business. But we have two remarkable women who found their passion and have been able to do that. I don't know if you want to stand or not, Laetitia. You can sit right there. And her story is really wonderful. I believe no one should ever blow their own trumpets. I'll blow their trumpets for them. She is busy studying for a PhD now, but when she was studying for another degree, she went and lived in France for a year and discovered she couldn't find hair care products. So she made her own and came home and made more and more and more, and everybody loves it, and that's why it's called Love Your Locks.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, hello everybody. I don't know if I should stand. Maybe I should stand to be
No,
more comfortable.
you
Sit.
can sit.
Don't follow our cue.
Well, my name is Laetitia Vambili, as Toby has already mentioned. I run a company called Love Your Locks with my wonderful husband, Danny Vambili. He's here today. He was actually the first person I trained, so it's really interesting.
He uses it on his hair as well?
No, he doesn't. So 10 years ago, in 2012, I was in France as a part of a bursary from the university from what I was doing. So I actually went there in hopes of becoming a UN translator or a translator for the European Parliament. And what I found is that I actually discovered a need that I had that I didn't know would later become something other people needed. So while I was overseas, it was really the first time for me that I was the only woman of color in public spaces. And it took me on a journey of identity. So at work, I would be the only woman of color. On the bus, I'm the only woman of color. So I started asking myself questions like, where is your hair? Because for my family members that lived in Europe, when I traveled, they all said to me, oh, you have to get a weave because the snow is really bad for your hair. So for the second time in my life, after my matric dance, I started wearing weaves. And I asked myself why our hair wasn't growing or, to some of the lengths that I was seeing when I was overseas. And I could hear a still and steady voice. I was in the bus saying, there's nothing wrong with your hair, you just don't have enough information about it. So I started doing my research and mixing what I could mix. I met 2 other African girls, one Jamaican, one Angolan, and they lived in Strasbourg, and so they had some strategies of how they made their own products. And so I started to learn from there. And life being life, I ended up coming back to South Africa a year later, where I was now engaged, and this man who I'm engaged to, he's a business-minded type of person. And in 2013...
And very good looking.
That helps too. It helps a lot. And in 2013, he said to me, you should sell these products. You should start a page, social media, tell other women your journey so that they can join you as well. And he's like a dog with a bone when he has an idea. So I just did it so he'd leave me alone. And I called the page Love Your Locks because it was a journey of self-love, the hair version. 3 years later is when Love Your Locks was actually born. I left the page, I neglected it. My sister was doing graphics design. She said, hey, let me professionalize that page of yours. I thought, which page? She said, the hair page. I said, sure. She shows me a logo, and I look at the logo, and I knew it. I knew I had to do it. So our very first clients were actually American missionaries who had adopted a little girl from Botswana, and they didn't know what to do with her hair. And we had posted on Facebook, hey, we do hair now. So they saw it online, flew over, they were on their way to Texas, they had a layover at Tambo Hotel, and we went there and I did the daughter's hair. I posted the before and after on Facebook, and I guess you could say viral, because after that we had booking after booking after booking. And I had to take a break from school because I could see that there was a need here. So in 2016, we launched the business officially, and we always laugh, my husband and I, we had WhatsApp business before WhatsApp business was even real. Our clients were booking through WhatsApp because we felt like it was the easiest way for people to connect with us. And at that time, people would even laugh and say it's unprofessional, how can you book through WhatsApp? But we could see that our generation actually liked that, and 2 years later, WhatsApp joined us, and now it's okay, everybody's using it. But from that point on, we actually decided that because we were a new business, we needed feedback on our products, we needed feedback from our clients, and we wanted to keep their information. So we never put instructions on the products to this day. We would get their information, we would tell them, when you receive the products, wherever you are in the country, let us know. And that's how we kept their information, and that really helped during COVID, but I'll come back to that. So 2 months into running the business, a lot of people were coming to us because our hair care was painless and we were growing women's hair, all of that. And somebody came and said, hey, do you want to open my dreadlocks? Because the afro is painless, maybe the dreadlocks will work. And that's when we discovered that we were the only people who were able to open dreadlocks back into afro hair worldwide. We started having people flying in from Canada, United Arab Emirates, Nigeria. People would book their flights around coming to our 2-bedroom just to open dreadlocks and fly back. And so that's what got us on a magazine. I think at the time it was Destiny, and that boomed. So me doing it alone didn't work anymore. Had to train my husband, train some neighbors, trained a sister, and we had 5 chairs in my 2-bedroom. We left that place because at one point we were 15 at a time, 15 clients, hair, products, all sorts of things, buying, selling. And so, yeah, that's when we got into our first salon space. In terms of the tech aspect and how it helped us in our business, of course, we've got WhatsApp. And what happened during COVID is because we were in contact with all our clients, we had a database of 4,000 people. So we would watch the stages or the levels. And whenever a level would drop, we knew all the rules, and we were actually talking before. We would pivot with that. So level 4, we could deliver products. So we reached all our clients and said, listen, we're now available for delivery countrywide. And that's all we did. We sold products. Level 3, we could now do house calls because it was okay to go to the salon. So we WhatsApped everybody. We're doing house calls now and just sent everybody kind of all over Gauteng. And then also tech-wise, booking systems. The black hair care industry, which is what we're passionate about, it's largely unprofessionalized, it's untrained, and there aren't systems. So when we got involved, it's kind of almost like a mom and pop, where you're given a price based on what you look like. You know, her hair could be 300, mine is 100, depending on what you think I make when you look at me. And so we had to make a system, create a system where the prices were streamlined. And there are apps that do that. So we downloaded one of the apps that we use, and it's completely free, where we can check the bookings even as we're sitting right now. If somebody books in our branch in Pretoria or Joburg, it comes straight to our phones. As business owners, we can see what's going on. So that's how we used tech in order to grow our business. And it went from just myself and my husband. We now have 20 employees across the branches in Johannesburg and Pretoria, where the products are sold to our clients as well, and we do training for new staff members as well.
What a great story. Thank you. Hey, what did I say? And she's studying for a PhD at the same time.
Oh, I'm doing my master's now, but it's PhD is planned. It's in there.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I remember someone telling me, you should do an MBA. And they said, you do this, and you work late at night, and you're under lots of pressure, and you got to do your day job, and you don't get enough sleep. So I said, it doesn't sound like tertiary education to me. It just sounds like parenting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Segametsi, your story is just as fantastic. She was an intern at the CSIR and already had a business plan and has just graduated from an incubator run by Wits University. And you have some really amazing cleaning products, and you also were a COVID success story.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So my story is different. So when I was still working at CSIR, let me clarify, I'm not a graduate. I was studying chemical engineering. I dropped out because I was working at CSIR, which is an intense research and development company. So with that background, I mean, all I was doing every day was just being in the lab, discovering things, come out with patent, research papers, and all of those. So that's where my passion for research and development started. So when I was working at CSIR, being an in-service trainee, it happened that one of my friends got an injury and then got to a hospital. You know, the whole procedure happened, but instead of her staying in a hospital for like 2 days, she ended up staying for 7 to 9 days. And with that mindset of research and development, I knew we had a problem. There's no way someone can stay this long in a hospital. Number one, I was looking at the cost that the medical aid have already spent. Number two, also, you know, it affects your mental health being there for a long time, you know. And actually what put the mark into me getting my aha moment that we do have a problem was, you know, in the movies when you go visit your aunt and you see them cuddling in bed, and I tried doing that, and one of the nurses passed by and she said to me, don't do that, don't ever do that. You know, I started doing research on hospitals, and I get to understand that there's hospital-acquired infections. So you can go to a hospital with flu, and you can, you know, end up catching something while you are there, which can lead to staying longer. So I started research on that, and I started doing, going to hospitals to study the psychology of healthcare workers. And I noticed that actually a nurse comes from home with the uniform. They come, they work in the hospital the whole day, right? With the same uniform, they leave. They get into a taxi and go back to the township and to their families. Now that's cross-contamination. That's infections that you get from hospital, you take them home. So I wanted to create the solutions around that, and I saw that textile was not being taken serious. So that's where my business actually started doing research from there, and I was still a CSR. Now I have to leave and go to the business environment. Man, only if I knew. So, I mean, for us, I pitched at TIA. We got funded from TIA. We have been doing research and development. So we've been running this research and development since 2017, and we've recently got a prototype, and it's tested, and it is performing. I mean, last week I had a meeting with SABS, and they were telling me that they don't have any standard to test our product. We need to determine our own. You know, so it shows you that the time is changing, and it also shows you that our market has grown now compared to where we are, and now people are more open to innovative products, and it actually shows that there's a movement. I mean, I liked the clip that you played, that there is a shift in an environment. But for us at Gideon, we are more focused in how do we introduce the tech in the manufacturing space. So when I got into the space, everyone was doing things the same way. I mean, my business partners or people that I work with in the textile industry, we're talking about people who are from Italy, who've been in the textile for like 40, 30 years. So they don't know, they only know that you weave this way. So when I come, I always want to introduce tech in the space. And one of the things that we did, because we work with healthcare sector and we want to help transform the healthcare sector to how things are being done, is that our products come digitalized. So one of the problems that I saw is that hospitals spend so much money losing curtains. And a curtain from ICU can be taken to a radiography or a different ward. So we wanted to solve that. So we have digitalized our curtains. So you can see how many times it has been washed. You can see where your curtain is. You can see when you get to be administrated in the hospital, when they put in your name and everything, they can scan all the textile that you're going to use, that the patient is going to use, So it kind of crazy every time when I talk about it, because people will be looking at me like, and I see us developing things for Elon Musk as it's going to space, So it shows you that technology, it's not only for the smartphones, but technology can still be applied everywhere, anywhere. It's just a matter of having a platform and having Nedbank to give us money so that we can develop more.
Good pitch.
Yeah, and he gave an example of the textile, and I used Nedbank, and I didn't know about a lot of things that he spoke about, So it's how at Gideon Inno Textile we see the world. So everything that we do, we always ask ourselves that 5 years from now, where will the world be? Not only in a mindset of infection control, but then in a mindset of technology-wise, where are we? Manufacturing, where are we? So it always helped me as well as the CEO of the company to say, how do we merge these things? How do we cater to the people? How do we solve our customers' problem? How do we make sure that when you are sitting in a hospital, 5 years to come, this is not a good example, you want to sue the hospital. How do you track back?
I'm Jewish.
Accountability.
We love suing.
Accountability.
I mean, my people have congenital hypochondria. We love a good hospital.
Yeah.
And you love suing.
Yes. I mean, it's just a fantastic story, Segametsi. I'm so impressed by your foresight. Both you and Laetitia saw real problems in the world, and that's why I wanted them to speak today. Real problems with real solutions. My mother's 94 now, but just the year before COVID, she was 91, 92. She was in hospital not aneurysm, when your heart beats too fast, and then she had arrhythmia, and then she had a stroke. So I spent 2 weeks, 6 months apart in a hospital, and that's when I discovered how bad these superbugs are. I probably should have said that in advance. Superbugs are terrible. I had a separate pair of shoes. I would take all my clothes off and leave them in the boot of my car. These superbugs are really something, and it's such a brilliant insight to see that nobody looks at the fabric, which is the best way to transmit a bacteria or a bug. So hugely impressive, amazing, brilliant business models by two amazing, brilliant young women. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toby.
To bring up the age little bit, I've brought in myself. and an amazing guy called John Dludlu, who was a very fearless, famous journalist who was the editor of the Sowetan. He was telling Gabriel and I earlier, as he joined the paper, he had 2 major scandals. So he's really good at putting out fires, but he's also incredibly passionate about small businesses. And he writes an incredible column for Business Day, but he also is just going to give us some insight into how tech and digital transformation, I mean, digital transformation is a big word for using, tech, like you were talking about, all of your apps, Laetitia, are web-based or mobile-based so that you know what's going on. I'm busy looking at the questions from the online audience. Thank you very much, Tanda and Selini, for your questions. Anybody else, please ask questions. And we're going to have a few words from John. Thank you, John.
Thank you very much, Toby, and to Nedbank for organizing this amazing session. And I would like to start by paying tribute, obviously, to the 2 ladies and fellow panelists. And Ciko, thank you for what you're doing for small businesses. In the National Development Plan, which is the blueprint for the economy up until 2030, there is a statement of aspiration that says by 2030, 90% of jobs must come from the small business segment of the economy. Now, in theory at least, we should be treating small businesses as a bunch of rock stars. Are we treating them as a bunch of rock stars? No, we are not.
I don't know. I don't get a caravan when I go somewhere and there's like no bottles of water.
No. We're treating them like these are our dirty little secrets.
Yeah.
These are our dirty, you can't meet the parents, you're good enough for this, but not for that. So we are not treating them very well. Whether it is big business segment of the economy, we pay them late. Whether it's government departments, we strangle them with bureaucracy and red tape, which is why the president has appointed my chairman to cut the red tape. So what are they doing now? We have to thank COVID. COVID has radically transformed the small business segment of the economy. We have to pay tribute to them. They pivoted towards digitalization during COVID. As government was busy trying to figure out how to save them, they found a way. We have, in one of our chambers, we've got about 70 chambers of commerce that are affiliated to us, representing about 114,000 small businesses across the length and breadth of our country. There is a chamber of commerce of young people called Township Entrepreneurs Alliance. It is based in Eguruleni. They represent about 34,000 SMEs. And what they did was they were the first to digitalize and to adopt and embrace technology during the COVID period. First hard lockdown, they were already doing events on a digital platform. So we have to respect the crisis that was brought to us by COVID, because it radically transformed. It brought forward by 5 years at least what would have happened if we had waited for government. It would have happened maybe in 2025 or 2024. But that digital adoption happened much earlier, thanks to the young people and thanks to the small businesses of our country. So what we found in our research, which we did, when it became very evident that COVID was going to be with us for much longer, we commissioned a series of papers. One of those papers was on digitalization. We found that businesses, small businesses especially, because we looked at them we used the research to look into the business world through the lens of a small business owner. We found that small businesses were the first to adopt technology, and governments and larger enterprises did follow suit, but it took much longer for them to do so. So we really have to treat our small businesses as rock stars of the economy. If we're serious about ensuring that 70 to 90% of the jobs by 2030 come from the small business segment of the economy. Yes, big business has got a very big role to play, as government entities and state-owned enterprises, but we really have to move with the world. All successful and progressive economies generate more jobs, more growth from small business segment of their economy. We are not doing that. We really have to. So what I heard from you, Ciko, today gives me so much hope, but we must ensure that we don't leave anyone behind. All what I've spoken about now applies largely to the metropolitan areas and the urban areas of our country. We still have a very vast segment of the small businesses which are in the rural areas, which are being left behind simply because of the lack of infrastructure and a reliable supply of energy. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Love journalists, eh? Short, sharp, 600 words, delivers on deadline, hey? Shows up on time. I'll have you know the journalists were the first people on time today. Thank you, Gabriel. So that's a really great summation to my mind of the challenges of living in the country that we live in, and we love it, and we want to be here. I don't think there's any conversation about it being our home and the challenges that everybody faces to rebuild our businesses, our country, the damage that COVID did to so many people's income. Are there any questions for our panelists? Anyone have any questions? Any questions online? No? So good, we didn't even have to do any questions. So that's really fantastic. I have a page that tells me what to do next. Questions from the guests? No. Closing remarks? Yes? Okay, we're ready for closing remarks. I'm going to stand up so I look more impressive, and you can see I'm wearing a nice jacket. It's the only time journalists wear jackets, by the way, is when they're trying to impress bankers or people at an event. And what I really wanted from this event, and I hope that we've got it, is just a perspective of how important small businesses are and how important technology is for enabling businesses. We don't really talk about technology. The steam train is technology, a watch is technology, this phone is technology. The ability for me to look at Microsoft Teams chat, because that's the way we're broadcasting is. We haven't had to invent anything. We can just go and use something. There are so many services that are available. They're brilliant super apps like Nedbank's, Avo, that provide all of this. I never wanted to run a small business. Both my parents ran small businesses. I could see how much work and effort went into it. But Sally and I have been able to run a business because we understand technology. Her much more than me. Don't listen to what she pretends to say. And we have been able to be successful because of technology. Everything these two brilliant young women have said to us is solving a real problem. Both of them saw there was a problem in the world and solved that problem and have been successful, not without an immense amount of hard work and having someone like Danny's hair to practice on, I'm sure, right? Yeah, I must say, your locks are very flowing. Thank you. So much. Thank you. You know, I'd say you look like Cinderella, but Cinderella never had a beard. So, thank you very much for everyone. Thank you, Ciko, as John said, for the support you give small businesses. Sally's telling me there is a question from... Sorry, you get to a point in life where you need multifocals, and the font of this is too small, so I can't read your name. Mumtumzeli, I think. Is there any strategy or production loans for small businesses to start up from Nedbank? That's a question for you.
So yeah, I mean, we do. So startup financing for small businesses is incredibly difficult for banks because funnily enough, one of the things I didn't tell you is that I used to own a small business myself.
Yes.
So I've kind of gone through the barbed wire. One of the things I'd speak about to emerging entrepreneurs is the need to understand the role of risk capital in starting a business. A lot of business owners have this conversation around how do I start my business, and it shifts towards the bank is there to fund me. And there's never an internalized conversation that says, what might I bring myself into the conversation? And if you start there, you're starting on the back foot. If you have some notion of risk capital, runs and cents to bring into the conversation, it makes it much easier to commence your journey around building an enterprise. Whatever that amount of money is, it makes it much easier to start that conversation even with a bank, because the first question a bank will ask you, in fact, any financier, actually, even a venture capitalist, unless you have a super brilliant idea, is what skin are you bringing into the game? So to the extent that you have some skin to bring into the game, it makes for a very easy conversation. So that question, without me understanding the context of whether they have access to risk capital or not, is tricky to answer. But certainly, to the extent that an entrepreneur brings a modicum of risk capital, then it's very easy to have that conversation. Absolutely.
I mean, what's impressive is that there was a long time ago where the answer from any bank would just be no. Whereas now, there's a consciousness about, you know, have you got skin in the game? Have you got, as I've been saying, I mean, I have a startup myself, but I've been saying for so many years, a good idea is not enough. It's got to be a good idea and a good business plan, which is what, you know, our heroes of small business today have succeeded. There's another question for you, John, from Cecilia. You spoke about the red tape that's hindering SMEs to access funding to start and expand their business. Please elaborate on what red tape you have managed to remove in order for the SMEs to access funding. I like that you think a journalist and CEO of a small business institute can change government funding. I think that's a little bit difficult, but certainly John's organization has very useful ways of getting through the red tape, if not necessarily cutting it.
Thanks, Toby. I think part of the question has to be answered by Ciko as well. As far as business funding readiness is concerned, we are running a campaign now of business clinics with another organization called Business Partners, because what we realized during COVID was that there was so much help available, both from the private sector as well as from the state-owned enterprises, the DFIs, the development finance institutions. But it was very hard to access this help. And why was it hard? It was hard because, first, lack of information, and we found that the people who desperately needed the help were not funding ready. They were not good corporate citizens. They did not have their tax clearance certificates. They did not have their CIPC documents. They did not have UIF documents. So we are now starting to prepare for the next crisis, so to speak. But more directly, what sort of red tape have we managed to do? I think the biggest step that has happened in the country now is the focus, the current focus, which is beyond newspaper headlines, current focus on cutting red tape. 2 government programs are at play right now, and we have been campaigning for that for the last 4 or 5 years. We've been saying to the government, please implement Section 18 of the Small Business Act. What Section 18 says, it says before you layer out a new set of regulations, policies, and legislation, you must do an impact assessment. You must do an impact assessment on small businesses. So in theory, at least, for example, before the budget is passed, the Minister of Finance ought to have done an impact assessment on small businesses. It's never been done in the last 28 years. Hopefully, now that we're focusing on the red tape reduction as a country, this will be done going forward. So 2 government programs are being implemented right now. The first one is Operation Vulindlela, which is looking at the network industries, whether it was the spectrum, the electricity crisis, as well as the transport infrastructure. The second one is obviously the focus, the appointment of Mr. Sipho Nkosi as the red tape czar for the president. We'll be meeting with him tomorrow to look at his priority program over the next 6 months. And then the other one is happening and is coordinated by the DTIC as well as the Department of Small Business Development to capacitate the provinces to set up war rooms on how to reduce red tape. So part of the red tape that has gone, for example, is the president, through just one announcement, removed all the licensing requirements and extended all the permits for informal traders. So it's quite possible to do this. It is unacceptable that a small business owner spends 9 working days complying with a whole set of regulations, policies, bylaws. That's almost 4% of their turnover every year.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much. Anyone who can get government to move faster deserves a medal in my hand. Hello, Mr. Late. Mr. Like to ask a question, please.
Good morning, everyone. My apologies for being late.
No, dude. The joke is I'm always the late one.
No, I do understand. Thank you so much. Because I'm coming all the way from the West End. So you can just imagine the traffic and everything that happens along the road. But anyway, then I would like to thank everyone who just gave us some more information. The only thing that really then is a challenge for us, the small businesses, people then coming from work, being retrenched and resigning from work, that we wanted to do something different in our communities. I'm in a tourism industry, and for me, it's a very challenge. Also, there's another challenge that is there. I don't know what the banks could do for us, the credit bureau issue. But then I was going to ask about the red tapes that Ms. Siponkosi, as I've heard the president announce in a speech earlier this year. So then I wanted to know, so then when that is going to be done, and rather how soon is going to be done for us to be able to get a little bit of funding just to get started only. Then we'll take it further from there. That's an appeal from, I think most of us as SMEs, whereby then we are trying to get through, but then those things of credit bureau things, then those red tapes, and you have to be operating for 12 months in order for you to be able to get started, to be funded. So it's those kind of challenges that we want to find out, how can we be able to get started that, then even if it can be 90 or 80-20 percentage, if it could be that way. That's to get started, and therefore to make a living for the families, and therefore make a difference in the communities. That's an appeal that I personally wanted to find out, how can it be done for us?
Thank you very much for that question. If I understand it correctly, it's how do you get past the fact that companies want you to have a trading history or a proof of work or proof of concept? Is that your question? Yeah. Rico,
sorry, I've got bad news for you. You're going to need those things. This doing business thing is not easy, guys. It's hard. Okay? So there's some hard yards of your own that you're going to have to run when you start a business. You're not going to walk into the realm of starting a business and find everything laid out for you. I mean, just an example, the example that you made about constraints around credit bureaus. You shouldn't start a business if you're listed on a credit bureau, because the credit bureau listing is a mark on yourself on how you manage your own personal credit profile. Shouldn't have that if you manage your finances. Of course, life happens and people find themselves on credit bureau, etc., etc., etc. But if you therefore find yourself on your credit bureau, you should first own that fact and say, how do I get myself off a credit bureau first before I start approaching people for funding? Because people are not going to approach to fund me, most likely, if I have an adverse credit record. It's a fact of life, okay? So there's a process of and it's really easy to get yourself off a bureau, by the way. It's not a difficult process. You can get yourself off a bureau, but it's really hard to think of, I'm on a bureau, but let me also go and approach a funder to fund me business. Chances are it's not going to happen. So it's the paradigms with which we approach these things that also we have to challenge ourselves as owners of small businesses at the onset, that are also going to have to change a little bit.
Good points. Unfortunately, if you are registered with Care Bureau, you're going to have to clear that And you can do it. Lots of people have done it. Lots of people have had it done to them without knowing that they've defaulted on something or missed something. Danny, you had a question.
Yeah, my question is on retaining talent. You know, thank you so much. One of the most painful things for me is to watch Elon Musk make America great again. Because that's South African talent. But I feel like our government doesn't understand that good talent needs support. You know, and an entrepreneur goes from following a great idea to now you're an employer and all these things are happening that are not necessarily what you signed up for, okay? But when you've got great ideas that are life-changing, I mean, we are thinking about creating institutions that will change the hair experience for black women globally. Like, we're one of the only salons where children don't cry, which is a normal experience for black children globally, you understand? So you need some kind of support and visionaries around you who can see beyond where you are now. And I feel sometimes when banks are talking about small businesses, and I saw you guys kept it at 3 million, crossing that line is actually a bigger challenge. And there's a lot more you need to do, not just financially, but also governmental support. Otherwise, the advice you begin to get in the market is leave the country. You'll be better supported in the States, you know. And I just want to ask government, are you guys thinking about retaining talent? And also banks, are you seeing beyond the funding that can happen now versus the long-term transformation of industries? You know, that a small company is envisioning, but needs financial, not just financial backing. I think when we speak with my wife, we always say we don't need someone to give us 10 million.
Yeah.
We need someone to tell us the line is open as the sections grow. Because we're thinking factories, we're thinking institutions of training, we're thinking of changing even the model of franchising. Because we found that the current model doesn't really work if you want to create more employment and really empower people, not just from a perspective of I'm making money once they franchise, but what if I could use my business to help them franchise?
Yeah.
You know, people who are innovative and are in the right position. So 2 things, I think on this side it's talent retention from a business perspective, small businesses that are transitioning, and then on the Nedbank side is just the assistance of going from small business to, I don't know if we can call it big business or on your way to being a big business. There we go.
Thank you. I mean, I like it. I like when people ask long questions like that to just say yes. I mean, really, the answer is yes and yes. I hear you, and I don't know if anyone wants to speak about it specifically. Retaining talent is a great thing. And the thing that I say often is that there's a weirdness in South Africa about people leaving the country, and it's because of the history of apartheid, and people leave and they never come back. The smart young kids in any society always end up going overseas to study. It's the nature of smart kids going to big institutions around the world to learn extra skills. And I have written numerous stories about people who've been out of the country for 10, 15, 20 years, and they come back, then we call them repats, and they start stuff. There's this extraordinary woman who built a $260 million undersea cable to Nigeria called Main One. She's a great example of this. There's so many stories in South Africa. People go overseas, they come back with those skills. And I think South Africa has to change that attitude. Sure, Elon Musk's an outlier. He had a really terrible experience. I also got bullied at school. But, you know, that's the nature of you want your talent to go overseas and learn as much as they can and then come back, right?
Absolutely.
Chippo,
Yeah.
Ciko?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I'll challenge that a little bit. It's fine. Let them go. It's the only way they can actually bring value back. You know? I mean, and we're not unique in that position. You know, countries like Australia. Australia loses a lot of talent to the UK and the United States in particular. Some of the most prominent entrepreneurs in Australia, people like Kerry Packer, the Murdochs, don't operate out of Australia. They've made their money elsewhere, but they've found ways of cultivating it in growing business in Australia as well. So that's the trick for us. So a little bit to where Toby is, it's fine for our best talent to, and I mean Toby, I think Mr. Musk is a bad example because also he's a bit of a, he's kind of built a little bit of a cult around the media part of his story. It's fine for our talent to go. And sorry, John.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then on the part about the bank, also, a bank that you form a relationship with over time is always going to be with you on your journey of growth. Let's be clear about that. And Nedbank is not unique in that. Any bank that you have a demonstrated relationship with over time will always partner with you. I think that I challenge business owners as well to see their relationships with the banks as relationshipal, not transactional. Because like anything that's transactional, it's always gonna be at a point in time. And so therefore you don't allow yourself to build a relationship. If you build a relationship with your bank, you pick up the phone because you've got a track record that you've built over time, you're doing you need a piece of expansion capital, your bank will look at it and say, this is someone that we've been on a journey with, will allow a line for them of either working capital or expansion capital. That's in the normal course of doing business. That's the one part. So think of what it means for you as an entrepreneur to form a relationship with your bank. And it can't be one-sided, it has to be both-sided. The bank will meet you, but you also have to meet it. And then on the other side, what South Africa does need, however, a point that you raised that's very good, is this idea of venture capital. Yeah. The United States thrives on entrepreneurship because it's got a very mature venture capital industry. So you'll hear the likes of the Andreessen Horowitzes, who are big investors in the tech space, funding a lot of tech startups. And then banks come into the picture at the back end and plug with risk capital, but the initial seed capital comes from venture capital. South Africa doesn't have a venture capital industry, and banks cannot be expected to play the role of venture capitalists because that's not the mandate of a bank. It's a different type of thing. So the conversation that we need to open up in South Africa is, why do we not have venture capital? I've got my own hypothesis. I believe that venture capital in its nature gets patriotic. It tends to fund cause of home country and ventures of home country. And the reason, to my mind, that we don't have loyal venture capital in this country is simply because we haven't cultivated an environment where venture capitalists feel the need to invest their money here. And so we need to ask ourselves why. And that's a different conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Can I just
Sure.
just add up on that? Sorry, it's very hard to comment when you're on the panel. Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to speak about is based on maintaining talent. If you can look at what's happening in our country, is that we have incubation hubs. For me, I feel like that's where actually talent can be maintained there, can actually be spotted there, and help it grow there, and then take it out for venture capital. And I agree with him 100% to say, in South Africa, we do have a big problem of venture capital. I mean, you cannot use, for us, for example, we are still sustained by 1 million that we got from TIA in 2017. So ask yourself, as a small business that we have so many ideas that we want to do, we want to pivot, we want to do all of those, how is 1 million going to help us? And we're looking for people who can come up and be like, hey, this is where your company is valued right now, but we can help you take it there. You don't have to wait until you have a perfect product. And that's one of the problems that we also have, that entrepreneurs are going to keep on working on the product. And the product will never get to the market. Why? Because we keep on working on the product, we tend to think that there's something wrong with our product, of which our products are already ready for the market. And if these incubation centers were to be, a spotlight goes to them, fund them, have conversation with them, the country will actually get a real problem. Why are small businesses always small businesses and they're not growing? I mean, I'm talking this, I've been with VETS, I've been with Transnet Matlafatjo Center, which is at VET. I've been with them since they opened. And we are the 2 entrepreneurs from VETS that we can show something today, since 2017. And I'm still not in the market. And I'm still developing the product. And I still have red tape such as accreditation that are waiting for me. You get what I mean? So it's
Are you alleging government moves slowly? No way.
Serious allegation.
Thank you. Laetitia, you want to say something, and then I'm going to come to John to close.
Yeah, I just want to touch on what she was saying about being on the panel and having a response. I wanted to speak to the gentleman that stood up that said he was in the tourism industry, and also touch a bit on what she said about the risk capital. I guess it depends what industry you're in. And what you need as a startup, right? But we've been in business for 6.5 years, and this is the first time we're looking at funding. We're looking at partnership. Why? Because when you say entrepreneurs are afraid to just start and put their product out there, our first product was sold without labels. It was just a bottle, and we wrote in Koki pen, shampoo, detangler, because the person wanted it so much. I mean, I almost died. I'm a perfectionist. But I realized that this thing had to move. If there's a demand, and I want to speak to every entrepreneur, my mother-in-law gave us 2,000 Rand. And with 2,000 Rand, I could buy the ingredients and 60 bottles. That's all I had. I didn't have enough money for stickers. But these things moved without stickers. And we started saving up. Sorry?
That's real. That's it's shampoo. Who cares what the sticker looks like?
Who cares what it looks like if the product is good? And it's just to inspire entrepreneurs that we're waiting for funding. But the idea is great enough that someone will buy into it. You know, if you're in the tourism industry, just start with what you have. Start taking people on tours. Save that money. I think one of the biggest things about risk capital entrepreneurship and having a track record that can get you funded is the responsibility of the entrepreneur of how you spend your money. Because that's why we were able to build what we've built. Because over 6 years, sometimes money sits in your account and you stare at it. Because you're responsible for other people. And when you start hiring, you can't be on a yacht in the Seychelles and salaries haven't been paid. I think that's some of the biggest issues. This idea of fame and blowing up and I must be rich, I must have money. What is the why of your business? Why are you doing this? What is the purpose? What is the history? What are you trying to build? What culture are you trying to build? Some of the greatest brands in the world built culture. They said, this German engine is for this type of woman. You don't need to sell to everybody. You just need to convince a few people to stay with you for life. And if you've got 5 clients that stay with you for life, you've got growth perspectives higher than someone sitting at home waiting for funding. So I have a very strong emotional link to funding because I feel like it stops a lot of people from moving forward. I have never had funding. I'm looking for funding now, 6.5 years later, because we want to go from small business to bigger because we see the need. And there is that little bit of a glass ceiling for small to medium enterprises. But for startups, my advice would be just start. Do not wait for anybody. You've got a great idea. Somebody's going to buy into it. Just start.
Amazing advice. Just start. And the final word to John Dludlu, who watches small businesses all the time. And I just want to bring the conversation back to the original point, which is this has been enabled by technology in many ways. We call it digital transformation because that's what it is. It is using things that are digital that make businesses small businesses more efficient, enable them to do things. You don't have to go buy a mail server. You can just, pay $5 a month for Gmail. They're free services if you don't have your own domain. I love that idea. Just start, and that's what I say to young reporters. Start practice writing. I wanted to be a film critic. I wasn't particularly good, but I loved watching movies. And I used to go to a film and watch the movie and write the review afterwards, until at one point I ended up writing film reviews. So it's great advice, but I'm going to hand over, I'm not going to, the wise man, John Dludlu, on Make It Good, John.
Thank you very much, Toby. I think I wanted to endorse what Ciko was saying, the lack of venture capitalists in South Africa. What is very disturbing about this, Ciko, we now have a situation where brilliant ideas leave the country and get funded from elsewhere because of that lack of that culture. But there is a very good initiative run by SAVCA, the Venture Capital Association in South Africa, to try and sort of steer the policy direction towards supporting the venture capital, the startups in South Africa. Unfortunately, my brother, the sad part, if you look at the stats, most of the successful businesses are started by loans from family, loans from friends. They are not started by loans from, very few of them are started with loan capital from banks or from DFIs. They're started from family. So I have to endorse what my sister is saying, just start. And more money will come for expansion, for growth, for hiring more, for getting more equipment, to extend your business. But the first part, it is your sweat capital, my brother, sorry.
Really great points. In fact, I mean, Sally and our story is, we started the business. I had to put in R1 million as part of the business plan after, 6 months. And by the time Sally and I got to that 6-month point, I'd remortgaged my house. I was ready to put the money in, and our business was so successful, I never had to put the money in. So, I mean, that's my 4th business. The average age of successful entrepreneurs in America is 42. I always thought that was meaningful because it's Douglas Adams' famous answer to the life, the universe. Anyway, Ciko, final words. From a man who has run, and he's hugely successful. He ran the first black-owned BMW dealership in the country. You are a pretty successful small business owner in your own right, and now you're helping other small businesses. Technology and digital transformation are part of the key to making new businesses successful and current businesses even more successful.
Yeah. Again, you know, less around what the bank can do, because, I mean, I think I've positioned that pretty clear. Just to say that this notion of kind of banks and us is gone. There's no such thing, you know. Banks are open to do business, guys, you know. So you have to have the courage to go. It goes back to the entrepreneur and a little bit to where you were going around. If you have a compelling business idea that you're passionate about is always going to find a market. So get on with it. But do the work that needs to understand to go into starting a business. Ask yourself, what am I bringing into the business? What skin can I put in the business? And unfortunately, you do need to put a modicum of, you know, even if it's, you know, stockpile money, a family loan, there has to be something that goes into it. And without that something that goes into it, it's very unlikely that your idea will take root and take flight. So think about that, and it can't be someone else's problem. It has to be your challenge deeply as an entrepreneur. And beyond that, really just let's go and start businesses and get behind them, support them, and fly. There's a whole lot of partners like banks in the ecosystem who want to see small businesses succeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I also want to see small businesses succeed. Thank you very much for our online audience. Cecile, Sipo, Thando, Kugelo, Shamil. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very active comments, and thank you very much for joining our panel. I hereby declare it closed, and for the people in the room, brunch is served. I've always wanted to say that. Brunch is served. Thank you.
Nice clothes.